How did Joel S. Goldsmith used to address his students, his readers, those who came to him seeking? He did not begin with a list of techniques or a set of rules. He began with a simple, profound, and radical assumption. He began by speaking not to the person burdened by problems, but to the very active IAmPresence of you, to the Christ within, to the consciousness that is your true being. He would start from a place of accomplished reality, not a promise of something to be gained later. And so, I speak to you now not as someone who has problems to solve, but as the very consciousness in which problems appear, and from which they can disappear. We have gathered here today not to add another stone to the burden of your life, not to give you one more thing to do. We are here to uncover what you already vary. The world will tell you that your problems are real, that your lack, your sickness, your discord, your fear is a solid, formidable fact that you must battle, manage, or endure. The world operates on that level, but I am here to tell you that Joel Goldsmith revealed a different level of reality, a higher law. He revealed that these so-called problems are but shadows cast upon the wall of your own conditioned thinking. They are not entities in themselves. They are the absence of the conscious awareness of the presence of God. You see, a problem cannot exist in the same space as an active, realized consciousness of God as all in all. Just as darkness cannot exist in the presence of light, a problem cannot maintain its illusory form when the light of your own infinite consciousness is fully turned upon it. It does not get solved. It is revealed as nothingness. It disappears not because you pushed it away, but because you saw through it. We will journey together into this great, liberating truth. We will explore how to shift from being a person with a problem to being the very consciousness that dissolves it. This is not a philosophy to be believed, but a reality to be experienced. And as we conclude our time together, you may find yourself wondering if this is true, if the key is not in the strenuous effort of the human mind, but in the gentle yielding to this divine consciousness. Then what is the first, simple, what yet profound step I can take to begin living this truth in my own life, right now, with the very problem that feels most real to me today? If this message of infinite possibility has resonated with the truth within you, if you feel the call to go deeper into this work, then do not let this be the end of our communion. Help this light reach others. Like this video, and subscribe to this channel to continue this journey from the world of effect into the cause of all being. And in the comments below, simply write the number 1. Let it be your silent symbol, not of a problem, but of the one life, the one mind, the one consciousness in which we all live, move, and have our being, of course. Here is the expansion of your first keynote, continuing directly from the flow of the introduction and written in the contemplative style of Joel Goldsmith. And so, we come to our first, and perhaps most challenging, principle that the problems which seem so solid, so real, and so oppressive to our human experience are in truth illusions of sense. This is not to make light of your suffering. It is not to dismiss the pain in your body, the fear in your heart, or the lack in your circumstances. Anyone who would tell you that your pain is not real to you does not understand the human journey. But we are not here to remain on the level of the human journey. We are here to ascend to the level of the Christ, to the level of spiritual consciousness, and from that altitude, to gain a new perspective. What does it mean that a problem is an illusion? It does not mean it is a fantasy. You feel it, you see it, it has tangible effects in your life. But consider this, a mirage in the desert is also felt, seen, and has a tangible effect on the thirsty traveler. He sees the water. His body may even react with a surge of hope. Yet, the water is not there. Its reality is entirely dependent on the perspective of the observer, on the condition of the atmosphere, and on the limitations of his own senses. In the same way, a problem is a mirage appearing in the desert of human consciousness, which believes itself to be separated from its source. It appears real only so long as we are looking at life from the standpoint of the five physical senses and the reasoning, calculating human mind. The human mind is a magnificent instrument, but it is a receiver and processor of data, not the source of truth. It can only work with the information given to it by the senses and by its past conditioning. It is this mind, this carnal mind, that labels, judges, and creates the entire framework of problem and solution. It sees a diagnosis and calls it a final verdict. It sees a bank statement and calls it lack. It sees a disagreement and calls it a permanent conflict. It takes the ever-flowing, ever-changing river of life and freezes a single frame of it, declaring, "This is the unchangeable reality. This is the illusion, the truth of your being." The truth that Joel Goldsmith spent his life revealing is that you are not this human mind. You are not the observer of the mirage. You are the very consciousness in which the mirage and the entire desert appears. When you are identified as the person in the desert, the mirage is a terrifying torment. But when you realize you are the infinite space of awareness itself, the mirage loses its power. It may still appear, but you are no longer deceived by it. You see it for what it is, a temporary appearance, a play of light and shadow, having no substance of its own to bind you or to harm you. Therefore, the work is not to fight the illusion. You cannot fight a mirage. You cannot battle a shadow. The work is to shift your identity from the one who is seeing the problem to the very consciousness that is the stage for its appearing. This is why we do not begin with the problem. We begin with the realization of God as the only presence and the only power. We begin with the I Am. We settle into the silence, not to petition God to fix our mirage, but to realize that in the radiant, all-inclusive light of divine consciousness, the mirage cannot maintain its form. It was never an entity to be destroyed. It was only an error of perception, a mistake of reality. And when perception is corrected, the illusion vanishes, not because it was attacked, but because it was understood. It disappears not into a solution, but into the nothingness from which it came. This understanding naturally leads us to the very foundation upon which this entire demonstration rests, or the principle that consciousness is the only reality. You will notice that we do not say consciousness is a reality, or even the most important reality. We speak of it as the only reality. This is a radical statement, and it must be grasped not merely intellectually, but from a place of deep spiritual intuition. The world you perceive through your senses, this room, your body, the chair you sit upon, appears to be the ultimate reality. It seems solid, separate, and self-existent. But this is the great illusion, the fundamental error that gives birth to the entire spectrum of human suffering. The world of form is not reality itself, it is the expression of reality. It is the objectification of consciousness. Nothing you see, hear, or touch has any independent substance or life of its own. Its entire being is borrowed from the one, infinite, living consciousness which is God. Think of the ocean and a wave. The wave has a distinct form. It has a beginning and an end. It can be measured, described, and seen as separate from the other waves. It can be a gentle ripple or a terrifying tempest. From the wave's limited perspective, its problems, its crashing against the shore, its conflict with the wind are very real. But what is the wave in its true essence? It is nothing but the ocean itself expressing as a temporary form. Its substance, its power, its very existence is entirely the ocean. It has no independent nature. In the same way, you and the entire universe of form are not separate entities moving through a neutral space called life. You are the activity of the one divine consciousness, individualizing itself as your being. Your body, your mind, your circumstances are all forms that consciousness is taking in this moment. They are not things in consciousness, they are expressions of consciousness. When this truth begins to dawn upon you, it revolutionizes your entire approach to life. You stop trying to manipulate the forms and you turn your attention to the source. You cease being a wave struggling against other waves, and you rest in the knowledge of your true identity as the ocean. This is the great transition from being an effect in the world to abiding as the cause of your experience. The human mind wants to rearrange the furniture in the room, but the spiritual message is that the room itself, the entire structure of your perceived reality, is appearing within you, within your own awareness. Therefore, to change the appearance, you must first acknowledge the nature of the appearer. This is why our work is one of inner recognition, of revelation, not of outer acquisition or manipulation. We do not use consciousness as a tool to get what the human mind wants. That would be to remain on the level of the wave, trying to command the ocean. Instead, we yield the human mind. We consent to be the very ocean of consciousness, allowing it to express itself as our life, our health, our supply and our harmony. When a problem appears on the horizon of your experience, the question is no longer, how do I, a separate individual, solve this? The question becomes, what is the nature of the consciousness that is the substance of this situation? What is the reality of being here? You are not looking for an answer from consciousness, you are abiding as consciousness, and from that position of omnipresence and omnipotence the problem, which was only ever a misperception of form, is revealed in its true nature as a temporary formation in the infinite, harmonious, and perfect flow of the one life. This realization that consciousness is the only reality makes one thing abundantly clear: the entire spiritual journey is not one of acquisition, but of identity. It is the profound and permanent shift from identifying as a person, a separate entity navigating a hostile world, to abiding as the presence itself, the very I am that is the source and substance of all that is. The person is the wave, while believing itself to be at the mercy of every wind and current. The presence is the ocean, the infinite, silent, and powerful capacity from which all waves arise and into which they subside. Your entire experience of life, from its greatest triumphs to its most profound challenges, is determined by which of these you believe yourself to be. The person is a construct, or collection of thoughts, memories, reactions, and sensations. It is the story you have been telling yourself about who you are, a story written by the world, by your past, by your traumas and your triumphs. This person feels solid. It has a name, a history, a personality. It has problems. It seeks solutions. Its entire existence is predicated on duality, good and bad, health and sickness, abundance and lack. It operates from the belief that it is here and God is there, and its primary spiritual work is to bridge that gap, to petition that distant God to intervene on its behalf. But this is the very loop of suffering. The person, by its very nature, is a state of lack, and from that state it can only perceive more lack. To shift from this person to the presence is to die while yet living. It is the surrendering of this cherished, separate self. It is the stilling of the frantic voice of the mind that is always planning, fearing, and comparing. We are not seeking to improve the person. We are not here to make the wave more successful or more resilient. We are here to realize that the person, in its deepest truth, does not exist as a separate entity. Its only reality is borrowed from the one I am. Your sense of being, that simple, undeniable awareness that you are is not a product of your body or your brain. It is the signature of God within you. It is the divine presence, individualized as your being. This I am is your true self. It is not in you, you are in it as an expression of it. Therefore, the practice is to withdraw your faith from the outer picture and from the inner narrative of the person. When a problem arises, the greatest temptation is for the person to spring into action, to analyze, to strategize, to fight, or to flee. But the spiritual activity is to do the opposite. It is to become still. It is to turn away from the turmoil of the problem and to turn within to that simple, silent sense of I am. You must release your grip on the story and rest, even for a moment, in the awareness that is aware of the story. In that moment, you are not a person with a problem. You are the presence, witnessing the appearance of a thought form. You are the open space in which the drama is playing out. This is not a passive state. It is the most potent activity in the universe, for it aligns you with the creative power of God. From this place of rest in the presence, right action unfolds spontaneously, not as the strained effort of a separate individual, but as the harmonious, intelligent expression of the infinite invisible. We're moving through the form that you are. The problem ceases to be a threat to the person and becomes instead an opportunity for the presence to reveal itself in new and greater ways. This movement from the turmoil of the person to the peace of the presence reveals a secret so profound it can dismantle the entire framework of the human experience. The answer precedes the problem. To the human mind, steeped in the relentless flow of time, this is an utter impossibility. The mind operates in a strict sequence. First comes the problem, then, with great effort and a measure of luck, comes the solution. The entire world is built upon this linear cause and effect model. But we are speaking of a different plane of reality altogether, the realm of the infinite, where God is the only cause and the only effect. In this realm, which is the only true reality, the harmony, wholeness, and completeness of your being is the eternal and established fact. It is the unchangeable truth of what you are. Imagine a source of pure, white light. This light is constant, unwavering, and whole. Now, imagine placing a filter in front of this light. A filter colored blue, or red, or a filter with a crack in it. The light that passes through appears colored or broken. The problem, in this analogy, is the colored or fractured appearance. The human mind sees only the fractured blue light and dedicates all its energy to trying to fix the blue light. It analyzes the shade of blue, laments the crack, and strives to paste it back together. But the solution was never in the filtered light. The solution, the answer, is the eternal, unfiltered white light that was shining before the filter was ever placed in front of it. The answer is the source, not the manifestation. Your life, in its spiritual truth, is that white light. The problem, be it a health issue, a financial lack, or a relationship conflict, is the temporary filter. It is a conditioned pattern of thought, a belief in separation, a fear that has been placed before the radiant truth of your being. When you turn your attention to the problem, you are staring at the filter, and in doing so, you are giving it a reality it does not possess. You are acknowledging it as the primary fact, and your innate wholeness as a secondary, hoped-for possibility. This is the inversion that perpetuates suffering. The spiritual activity, then, is to withdraw your attention completely from the filter, from the problem, and to turn your gaze to the light itself. You do not deny the appearance. You simply recognize it as an appearance, and you choose to place your faith in the substance behind it. You abide in the conscious remembrance that your wholeness is the pre-existing condition. Before the world was I am. Before the problem arose, the harmony of God was the established reality of your being. You are not moving from a state of lack to a state of fulfillment. You are moving from a state of ignorance, where you believed in the filter, to a state of remembrance, where you know yourself as the light. This is why prayer in the Spirit is never a prayer of petition, but a prayer of affirmation and acknowledgement. It is not asking a distant God to send a solution. It is a conscious stillness in which you acknowledge, Thy grace is sufficient. Thy will is already done. The kingdom of heaven is intact within me. Now, you are not creating the answer, you are aligning yourself with the answer that has been shining eternally. You are removing the filter of your own belief in the problem, and as that belief dissolves in the light of this understanding, the appearance must change to conform to the original perfect blueprint. The problem did not get solved, it was revealed to have never touched your true being, and so, having no anchor in reality, it simply dissolves into the nothingness from which it came. And so, we arrive at the practical activity, the very heart of this demonstration, which can be summed up in what the world calls the art of letting go, but which we understand as the art of letting God. This is the critical transition from mental effort to spiritual surrender, from the strain of the seeker to the grace of the found. The human mind, in its fervent desire for peace, has tragically misunderstood this concept. It believes that letting go is an act of resignation, a giving up in the face of an unconquerable problem. It imagines it as a state of passive defeat. Nothing could be further from the truth. To let go, in the spiritual sense, is not to release your grip on a desired outcome. It is to release your grip on the entire false premise that you are the one who must orchestrate the outcome. You see, the belief that you are a separate person automatically carries with it the burden of being the sole author and manager of your life. This ego, believes it must think its way through, fight its way out, or figure it all out. It carries the immense, crushing weight of personal responsibility for a universe it did not create and cannot control. This is the source of all anxiety, all fear, and all fatigue. The art of letting go is the conscious, deliberate decision to lay down that burden. It is the recognition that the role you have been playing is an impossible one, and that there is only one actor, one life, one divine operator, and that is the Father within. You are not surrendering to the problem. You are surrendering the problem to God. This is an active, focused, and profound practice. It begins in the silence. When a problem presents itself, and the old machinery of the human mind begins to wear into action, planning, worrying, calculating, you must make a different choice. You must stop. You must become still, and in that stillness, you consciously and intentionally relinquish the entire situation. You are not handing it over to a foreign god in the sky. You are releasing it back into the substance from which it came, which is the infinite, intelligent consciousness that you are. You are saying, in effect, I, as a separate entity, withdraw from this. I release my mental grasp. I seize my mental striving. I let go of the need to know how, when, or where. I consent for this mind to be the only mind, for this will to be the only will. This is not abdication. It is the highest form of cooperation. You are cooperating with the divine by getting your limited sense of self out of the way, thereby allowing the infinite to flow through the form of your life unimpeded. You are the flute, and you are letting go of the need to compose the music, so that the divine breath may play its perfect melody through you. The moment you truly let go, a profound shift occurs. The tension that was binding the problem in place dissolves. The mental energy you were pouring into sustaining the conflict is freed. And in that space of inner quiet, a new intelligence, a new power begins to move. It may bring a new idea to mind. It may arrange circumstances in a way you could never have engineered. It may simply bring a deep, inexplicable peace that transforms your relationship to the situation entirely. The problem ceases to be your personal burden and becomes instead an arena for the divine to reveal its own glorious solutions. You are no longer a laborer, toiling to build your life brick by brick. You are the witness, watching in awe as the master builder unfolds a masterpiece. This entire journey culminates in the realization that fulfillment is realized, not achieved. The ceaseless striving, the relentless pursuit of goals, whether they be for spiritual enlightenment, material abundance, or perfect health, is the very activity that obscures the reality of what we already are. The person is forever on a quest, believing that fulfillment exists at some future point at the end of a long and arduous path. It is always becoming, but it never arrives at the peace of simply being. This seeking is the engine of the illusion, for it reinforces the core belief in a state of lack. You would not seek for what you already consciously possess. The very search for fulfillment is a confession that you believe it is absent from you now. But the truth revealed through this consciousness is that the kingdom of heaven, the state of perfect wholeness, is within you. It is not a prize to be won, but a pre-existing condition to be recognized. It is the fundamental nature of your own being, which is one with the Father. The wave does not achieve being the ocean. It realizes it has never been anything else. Your fulfillment is not contingent upon any external circumstance, any healed body, any filled bank account, or any harmonious relationship. Those outer conditions are not the source of fulfillment. They are, at best, the fleeting and imperfect symbols of the inner, spiritual reality. To believe otherwise is to remain trapped in the world of effect, chasing shadows. Therefore, the work is to cease the outward search and to turn the attention inward, not to find something new, but to acknowledge what has always been there. It is a shift from ambition to acknowledgement. You sit in the silence, not to extract a blessing from a reluctant God, but to become aware of the divine presence that has been your very substance all along. In that stillness, you are not a seeker, you are the sought. You are not a petitioner, you are the living temple in which God resides. This is not an intellectual conclusion, it is a felt experience, a dawning awareness that the peace, the joy, the security, and the wholeness you have been seeking in 10,000 different directions are the very essence of the consciousness you are. When this realization begins to permeate your awareness, it transforms your entire relationship with life. You no longer live from a sense of need, but from a sense of overflowing fullness. You engage with the world not from a hunger to get, but from a joy to express. The drive to achieve relaxes into the grace to realize. And as you abide in this conscious awareness of your innate fulfillment, a most beautiful and practical mystery unfolds. The outer world, which is but a mirror, must begin to reflect this inner truth. The symbols of health, abundance, and harmony will naturally begin to appear in your experience, not because you strain to achieve them, but because they are the natural and inevitable expression of the fulfilled consciousness you have realized yourself to be. They are the footsteps of the Christ, visible in your world. The struggle ends not because you have conquered the world, but because you have discovered you were never of it. You are in the world, but your fulfillment is of the kingdom, and having turned within, you have found it, and in finding it, you have found that every need is already met in the divine economy of the One.